Hello, Dawgpound South campers. This is the Cleveland Browns Dawgpound South podcast. I'm your host, Steve Gill. I am, as you know, this is part of the Fanatical Elves Network, part of the Fans First Sports Network. Well, let's talk about backup free agents, defense. Last time I talked about the offense, but first, little salary cap news. The salary cap will be increasing from the projected 242 to 255, an additional $16 million than was first thought, an increase of $30 million from last year. And also, the reason for the increase is to provide more money for retired players, for teams' retired players, and also performance pay. So that's fantastic. That is great news. Now the Browns are like $7 million over the cap. That's pocket change. In today's salary cap, NFL salary cap, that's nothing. They can restructure that, I think, on one player. So right now, this news came out yesterday, courtesy of Tom Pelissero, and apparently all the Browns fans who were adamant that Deshaun Watson's contract would put the Browns in salary cap hell, and that this type of spending they'll in 2 years they'll be in salary cap hell. Well, I could say, if you don't like it, go F and root for Buffalo, but I'm not going to say that. I'll just, tell those people who just are completely unhappy, which makes no sense. If you're a Browns fan, you should be happy. I'll just give you a little saying we have down here in the South. And those of you who live in the South know what I'm about to say. Bless your hearts. Okay, let's talk about, I'll have more on the salary cap after I talk about a few backups. And this is going to change because now the Browns have a little more money to spend. And believe me, they already knew it. All the NFL teams knew this number at the first of the year, probably before the first of the year. They all know this number. It's just now we're finding out about it. So let's talk about it. Defensive lineman. Jim Schwartz loves multiple defensive linemen, especially tackles. He likes pressure rates. I read an article by the salary cap god, Jack Duffin, who I love. Must follow him. Must, if you're curious about salary cap, find Jack Duffin on Twitter. He made a great point. Not only are they looking for value and for the salary of backups, because remember, Browns, one of their major rules, you don't pay for depth. So, but he also brought up a great place in looking at backup defensive lineman pressure rate. Didn't even think about that. So it took me over to Pro Football Focus, where I get all my salary cap and who's a free agent. So now I've added pressure rates. That's why it took me so long to get around to this after I did the offense. So let's look at defensive tackles. If you're looking for, because they're going to have to get backup defensive tackles. If they don't sign Jordan Elliott, they'll have Alex Wright. If they do sign Jordan Elliott, personally, I don't think they're going to sign him. I think they're going to let him walk. And so you have Alex Wright and Dalvin Tomlinson at the defensive tackle spot. Tomlinson shouldn't play more than 70% of the snaps. We don't know how much Alex Wright is going to play. He's on a rookie contract, so he is great value. He ended up the season in great shape. Do you want to re-sign Shelby Harris or Maurice Hurst, or possibly both? If you have the money, I'm not sure. The big knock on him when they signed him was, well, they always get hurt. And guess what happened? They got hurt. So you're looking for second-tier defensive linemen, somebody who can come in and give you 20%, 25, 30% of the snaps and also have good pressure rates. So, you look at somebody like Armon Watts of Pittsburgh. His pressure rate jumped, and thank you, Jack Duffin, for pointing this out. His pressure rate jumped from 4% to over 10% in 1 year. Now, if you're a backup, a rotational guy, that's what you're looking for, something in the 10% range. Mario Edwards of Seattle. He's had over a 10% pressure rate the last 4 years. He would be great. Veteran minimum. Same with Amon Watts. Um, After that, you're getting to guys like Solomon Thomas of the Jets. He's kind of like $2 million a year. He's down the list. Jordan Phillips of Buffalo. He's a second tier guy, 2.5. If you can get him for less than that, he'd be great. And then one of my favorites, Poona Ford, also of Buffalo. He's a second tier guy. I've always liked him for some reason. If you can get him for $2 million or less, he'd be perfect. So on the defensive edge side, let's see what Isaiah McGuire can do. They found a gem in Okoronkwo. So it really isn't a lot of defensive ends to talk about. Tyquan Lewis of the Colts and Marquise Davenport of the Vikings, both are going to cost you about $5 million. So rotational guys, I don't know about that one. They need to re-sign Zadarius Smith. That's who they need to resign, and his agents are going to meet with the Browns this coming week in Indy during the combine. So I think they're going to get that done with more money. And then you got Okoronkwo, and so they're going to need another edge. Linebackers. Let's talk about linebackers. Now, linebackers is kind of a unique situation. They have JOK, but everybody wants JOK to get an extension. Traditionally, the Browns don't pay linebackers. Andrew Berry learned in Philadelphia. Philadelphia gets veteran minimum or low salary veterans and puts them together, and it seems to work. So that's his line of thinking. That's why everybody in the media complains, well, they don't get the right kind of linebackers. This year, they're going to need to get linebackers, specifically Mike linebackers. They have two weak side or linebackers already on the salary on the payroll in Fields and Mahmoud Diabate. Now, I like Mahmoud Diabate. He really showed something last year in the preseason games, and he's a good special teamer, and so is Fields. I have a feeling they're going to keep both. They're both inexpensive. Diabate was always around the ball in preseason games last year. He's just a little slow. He needs to improve his instincts just a little bit. It won't take much for him to be a very good linebacker. So you're looking at Mike linebackers, basically. My first one would be Sione Takitaki. He can play both Mike and weak. So I would definitely try to re-sign him. Might even, they've been doing him a 1-year deal. $2.5 million, maybe give him a multi-year deal. He's proved his value. As for anybody else in the anybody want Mac Wilson to be back? Anybody? If Taki moves on, he might be a good third linebacker. I don't think he'd come back. He'd probably get veteran minimum. David Mayo of Washington, also a good Mike linebacker, veteran minimum. Mikal Walker of Pitt. I'm always for stealing AFC North players. That always helps me. Veteran minimum, and Ben Newman of Denver, also veteran minimum, only if Taki leaves. See, signing Taki would be the ideal situation at linebacker. I also think they're going to draft a linebacker. You got to get somebody in here and start learning so they can start in 2025. Cornerbacks. They're pretty set at corner. But then you got to think, if they're going to trade Greg Newsome, to pick up some salary cap space, because he's got his 5th-year option due at the beginning of May. Are you going to pay your third corner $12 million? Is that good value? So you're looking at, if you have a Newsome trade, Isaac Iadon of New Orleans, $2 million a year. Tierre Thomas, former Brown. He's also a very good special teamer. And he's with the Texans, and he can play slot. So he would be interesting. Shaquille Griffin, Carolina, probably cost you $3 million a year. If you're looking for a fourth corner, maybe Antonio Hamilton of Arizona, you can get him for veteran minimum. But they are pretty much set at corner, and they're pretty much set at safety, which we'll talk about next after these commercials. All right, so you're not going to get a high-priced veteran safety to come in here because you've got Grant Delpit, you got Juan Thornhill, you got DeAnthony Bell, and you've got the Ronnie Hickman, who played incredibly well. So there's your four safeties, but they need a fifth. And Jim Schwartz likes to play a three safety set. So I would be all in favor of bringing Roddy McLeod back. Jim Schwartz likes him, worked with him. They played better with him. You could really tell they missed him after he got hurt, and they got away from their three safety sets. So they started giving up a little bit more yardage in between the 30s. So I would be all in favor of bringing him back. But that injury and that age might turn you off a little bit. So, and like I said, no veteran safety is going to come in here and compete with DeAnthony Bell and Ronnie Hickman. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So you've got your starters, like I said, Delpit and Juan Thornhill. Thornhill signed through 2024. So you're going to, obviously, if you can do things, if Andrew Berry can find a third safety who will replace Juan Thornhill in 2025, that would be the ideal situation. So you're looking at guys like DeAndre Houston Carson of the Texans, veteran minimum, but he also plays special teams. A third safety that might work is Terrell Edmonds of the Titans. Schwartz may know him when he was an advisor with the Titans. He would work $2 million. Taylor Rapp of the Bills also would be a nice third safety if you don't resign McLeod, another $2 million. Adrian Amos. Now, I wanted them. He was on my short list last year, along with McLeod, to come in and play that third safety. And I know Jim Schwartz knows him because he played for the Titans when Schwartz was the advisor. I would not mind him at all. He plays for the Texans. Veteran minimum. You could probably get him for veteran minimum. And then there's the ageless one, Logan Ryan, also played for the Titans for many years, converted from corner to safety. He's with the 49ers, very valuable. Can play both free and strong safety. They're ideally what you want in your third safety. Somebody can do both. McLeod can do both. But Logan Ryan, you can get him veteran minimum, 49ers. I would not be opposed to that whatsoever. All right. So that's it, your backups. Let's talk about the salary cap and what's coming up here. First of all, this increase, like I said, $16 million per team. I think they're probably going to get Zadarius Smith's deal done. I know a lot of people were complaining because he only had 5.5 sacks. These are the same people that turn around and say Myles Garrett deserved Defensive Player of the Year, even though TJ Watt had more sacks. Believe me, I think Myles Garrett should win Defensive Player of the Year. And what did it for me was that Titans game when he forced two tight ends to follow him back and forth and then called timeout. The Titans had to call a timeout. And then on the very next play, he sacked Ryan Tannehill. He affects offenses. But you need somebody else who can also provide pressures and quarterback hits. Sacks are great. They make all the headlines. They make the highlights. Pressures and quarterback hits are just as important. If you're in the top 10 in both, like Zadarius Smith was last year, you are valuable to this team, especially to a Jim Schwartz defense. So get that done. Get Zadarius Smith in here. Get him signed. Couple-year contract. Throw a couple voidable years at the end of it. Boom. Done. What does this salary cap mean? This new money mean? Well, like I said, extra $16 million, but it also affects their upfront cash. Now, I've explained this. The upfront cash doesn't count against the cap. The Browns spend more in upfront cash than any team, $50 million more. So if you looked at what was projected, 242, that was the projected, then their salary for 2024 would have been in the neighborhood about 290, 292, because you're adding that upfront cash. Now it can go all the way up to almost $308 million. So they are going to spend money and they are going to be fine. Like I said, it's sustainable. So this week we have the Indy Combine. We'll hear from Andrew Berry and Coach Stefanski. Their pressers will be played on, either on the official website or on local radio stations in Cleveland. Listen, they don't say much. Like I said, Zadarius Smith and his reps will talk to the Browns. Also, we might start getting rumors about other agents talking to the Browns about their players. Remember, this is the illegal tampering period. This is where agents and GMs do hypotheticals. Like, well, I hear you represent a linebacker who was X number of age and got X number of dollars last year. If you were the agent of this linebacker, just hypothetically, what do you think that they might want? You're not really talking about a specific player to a specific agent. You're just doing hypotheticals. NFL loves it because it generates news and it makes them continue to be the 365-day-a-year sport they want to be. And also, everybody talks about the the 800-pound gorilla in the room. They own the room. Let's face facts. In the United States, the NFL owns a room. So that's it. That's what I have here. I will be getting back to you when I hear any more news about players. Just remember, Andrew Berry drafts. I know what I was going to say. Mary Kay Cabot. Two things. Said that Nick Chubb wasn't going anywhere, so stop with that garbage. But she has been mentioning a lot in her articles Gabe Davis, and what it's going to cost the Browns, something like $12-13 million. Last year, she talked a lot about Elijah Moore. Does Mary Kay know something that we don't know? Just food for thought. Andrew Berry will make big splashes in free agency or a trade. He will. The draft to him, until he gets his first-round draft pick next year, the draft for him is depth. And if those depth players are good enough and can play like a DeJuan Jones or a Dorian Thompson-Robinson, that's icing on the cake. Don't pay for depth. So I would expect Andrew Berry and like I said, they already knew about the salary cap figure long before we ever found out about it. I think he's still going to get as much talent in here to make Deshaun Watson as successful as humanly possible. I think the coaching hires did that. Dorsey and Staley for the running backs, the offensive line coach, Dickerson, they're all here to make Deshaun Watson better. Deshaun Watson just needs to learn how to slide. I'll give you an example, real quick example. 2 years ago, the last 2 years, not this past year, but the 2 years prior, Lamar Jackson got hurt. What happened to the Baltimore Ravens? Didn't make the playoffs. Last year, they hire a new offensive coordinator, Todd Moten, who stresses passing. Don't put your quarterback in situations where they're going to get hurt. It seemed to have worked. Lamar Jackson made it through the entire season, although he did what he normally does in the playoffs, loses because he loses his self-control, which he did again. So that's what I see for this upcoming team in 2024. Andrew Berry's going to load up on as much talent as he can. The draft will be, like I said, just for depth and for possible players to replace players in 24, players to do that replacement in 2025. Never pay for depth. All right, that's it for today. And like I said, I will be back if any news breaks or anything like that. I'll be doing podcasts. This time of year is my favorite time of year, as you can tell. So this has been the Cleveland Browns Dawgpound South podcast, part of the Fanatical Elves Network, part of the Fans First Sports Network. And I just want to again thank you for watching, following, listening. And like I always say, we're just Browns fans like you. We're fanatical just like you. So hopefully it's been informative. And I'll see you at the next podcast. Everybody, go Browns.